Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Sarah Burge, and I'm the clinical director as well as the training director at Adolescent Counseling Services, which is our main offices are in Redwood City. So I'm going to start with the last thing. So our philosophy and mission is we're aiming to be the organization that has the real expertise on supporting adolescents in the Mid-Peninsula area, so northern Santa Clara County and San Mateo County. And Adolescent Counseling Services has had different programs over time, depending on what the adolescents really need at any point in time. And by the way, we define adolescence at this point in time is from age 10 to 25. So wide range of young people and kids. At this point in time, we have 4 main programs. We have our school-based programs. So we have clinicians who work on site at various high schools, middle schools. We're actually even in an elementary school this year and some youth centers in the area. And then we have our adolescent substance abuse treatment program, which has 2 main parts to that program. One is an alternative to suspension program where we go into high schools and middle schools and provide group therapy and psychoeducation to kids who have gotten caught either using substances or with paraphernalia. So it's an educational support service instead of just suspending a kid. That's one part of the program. The other part of the program is our in-house, more intensive substance use treatment program. In that program, the whole family comes in for a pretty intensive assessment process, and then they all get customized treatment recommendations where they have some combination of individual therapy and family therapy and group therapy and parent support, different services. So that's our substance abuse treatment program. And then we have our outlet program, which supports LGBTQ plus youth. And in that program, it's kind of half clinical and half non-clinical. So we have interns in training who come and provide individual therapy and parent support groups and assessment support for LGBTQ youth. Then we also do a lot of social stuff for the LGBTQ plus kids. We have support groups and events and some non-clinical stuff in that program as well. Then the final program is our community counseling program, which is just a general outpatient clinic for young people, adolescents, and their families who have more mild to moderate, any range of mental health concerns. So anxiety, depression, school stressors, grief, these kinds of issues. So those are our main programs right now. Every year, we usually have around 25 interns across all the programs, and they all are in the training program together. So they come together for didactics, and some of them are in supervision groups with interns from other programs. So why don't I stop there? That's a little about our programs. Slightly different program to program, but usually our placements are a 20-hour week placement. As the clinical director, I like people to have around 10 hours a week of direct client services, and that could be anything from individual therapy. It might be helping with intakes. It might be doing an assessment. It might be co-leading a group. Might be consulting with parents. So all of those things are client contact. That would be 10 hours a week. And then the other 10 hours is a combination of group supervision, individual supervision, staff meeting, didactics, with an hour a week agency-wide didactics. And then the rest of the time is administrative, and depending on your program, there may be some additional things you do. So you may do, most interns in most programs help with outreach, for instance. So you get an opportunity to do a psychoed night, or help with some other kind of programmatic issues. So slightly different program to program. Once again, it's different program to program. So in our school-based programs, either the parent or the teachers can refer the kids, and then we will bring them in and talk to them and see if they would like to have services. And if so, we reach out to the parents and get consent, and then we can begin services. For our substance abuse treatment program, it's usually the parents that are calling us. Most kids don't call and say, hey, I have a substance use issue, can I get some support? It's usually the parents who are calling. So we'll talk to the parents first, bring the whole family in for a multi-session assessment, and complete with a urine analysis, and then we give the treatment recommendations, as I mentioned before. The outlet program is kind of, we get parents or youth who call wanting support. Sometimes those kids want support and they don't want their parents to know about it because they might be exploring some part of their sexual or gender identity. They're not ready to talk to their parents about it. So we will consult with the kid and kind of figure out a best path for them to get support. And so it crossed all the programs. The interns are a part of the intake process, learning how to do an intake and how to call a parent and work with parents. If your clients are minors, is really important clinical skill. So we want all the interns to be a part of that process as part of their learning at ACS. In most programs, you'll have that 10 hours a week I mentioned before. So if you're in a school-based program, that's going to be probably all individual sessions. So you'll have 10-ish individual sessions a week. In the substance use treatment program, you're going to be doing a lot more different things. So you may have an individual client, you may have a family client, you may help with 2 groups, you may help with a group on site at a school as well as a group in-house. So your clinical responsibilities are much more varied. In the outlet program, working with the LGBT youth, you'll definitely have 8 to 10 or maybe 7 or 8 individual clients. You'll for sure help with 1 or 2 groups. We have ongoing, very popular parent support groups that the interns co-lead, as well as we have an intern show up at all of our social groups for the youth, just so there's a clinical eye present. So all the interns will have an individual caseload plus help with some of those groups. And in CCP, it's all individual clients. Everybody, regardless of their level of training and what they're heading towards in terms of licensure, will have 1 hour of individual supervision a week and a 2-hour group supervision every week. So I work very hard as the clinical director to have supervisors. We have a team of contract supervisors on purpose because we want people who have expertise that are relevant to the intern. So interns in the outlet program, I want supervisors who have expertise in working with the LGBTQ plus community. And in the substance abuse treatment program, I want supervisors who have real life substance abuse treatment experience. So we have a team of contract supervisors who provide the individual and group supervision, And like I mentioned previously, in most cases, the groups, you'll be in there with interns from different programs. So you're getting to learn a little about how some of the other programs work by hearing the cases from your other people in your group. So we have the once a week, 1 hour didactic training that goes from late August until the end of May. And we start the year going over the basics that everybody needs to know. So we spend about the first 6 weeks talking about progress notes and treatment plans and mandated reporting and confidentiality and just our basic policies and procedures. And then once we get through all the basics, how to use our electronic record keeping system and all this kind of basics you need, then we have more guest speakers and specialized presentations that, and the goal being that when you leave ACS, you've developed some particular expertise in working with adolescents. So we're trying to have all our speakers talk about using whatever they're talking about with adolescents. So for instance, last year we had a professor come from one of the universities that we have interns coming from, and he talked about using CBT with adolescents for depression in particular. Or we're this week we're talking about motivational interviewing with adolescents. So everything is aimed towards adolescents. So we have a number. We also try and have all the interns learn from the other programs. So for instance, if you're working on a school-based site, you're going to get to attend some didactics where you're learning about substance abuse treatment, and other didactics where you're learning about supporting LGBTQ plus kids. So after you get through those basics in the beginning, it's various different topics just related to working with adolescents. Good question. I would say one thing is passion for working with youth. So everybody's learning, so we don't expect anybody to be an expert in anything because you're all learning. But passion would be one thing for working with adolescents. I'd say at ACS, an interest in learning about nonprofits and an interest in learning about program development. So since we're a relatively small agency, the interns get to have more exposure to learning about program development, and some people who are interested can even be involved in some aspect of program development. For instance, this year we're starting to market more testing services to the general community, that we can do formal test batteries related to certain issues. So I have a team of interns that are helping me design that program and get it launched. So interest in program, learning about programs and nonprofits would be another one. And I'd say, just curiosity and willingness to just really be engaged and step in and to be a part of things. And my personal approach as the clinical director, as a training director, is I would love for all the interns to aspire to be their highest possible self. So I want people to feel safe kind of pushing themselves and trying things that might be a little edgy, but that will help them grow. So people who are really wanting to be in that kind of environment where they're gonna aspire to be their best possible therapist self. Probably the same things I just mentioned that are also bonuses. So So if you're the kind of person that likes coming into a program and everything is kind of cookie cutter and it's been done exactly that way for years and nothing's changing, the program's kind of a static program, that's not going to be ACS. We're constantly, I forgot to mention this earlier, but because we're small on purpose, we have a big eye on quality. So we're, and we also have a funding model that allows us to have say ourselves in how the programs are designed. So we're constantly evolving our programs to make them better. We're constantly, for instance, in the substance abuse treatment program, reading the latest research and figuring out how we need to change our psychoed and change our interventions to be more effective. So if you're somebody that likes things to be really the same all the time, you might find it challenging being in an environment where things will change as we see a need for them to change. And I think some of the challenges we're having now are more around the pandemic. So it's hard to balance showing up. Some of our programs require that you be on site. Some of them have some virtual components. So that balancing all that can be challenging too. Well, I personally have taught at CIAS. I know CIAS. I love CIAS. I myself graduated from what used to be ITP. So I have a very transpersonal outlook on well-being and look at all our interventions through a whole being kind of perspective. So love to have CIAS people applying.